Good morning. Welcome to the Community Voice. I'm Steve Graddick, your host. Delighted to have you with us this morning. We've got a great show lined up for us today because Chad Smith of Smith's Thriftown Grocery in Bremen, Georgia is in studio. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
All right, let me get a little closer to the mic.
Yes, sir.
And we've got a lot to talk about. Obviously, food prices are dominating the headlines, and it's a challenge for all of us. But Chad Smith's there, and his crew at Smith's Thriftown is there, and they're ready to be of service. Before we kind of get into those kind of details, just give us a little history, a personal history about yourself, how you came to own the store, et cetera, et cetera.
I was with Coca-Cola right out of high school. I spent a lot of years with Coca-Cola.
And high school was Bremen High.
Bremen High School, yes, sir.
Okay.
And worked for Coca-Cola, actually delivered to the store. Go further back than that, my grandfather worked as a butcher across town for Lamar Cook's grocery store. There was two grocery stores in Bremen. When I was a kid, it was Lamar's and Thriftown. My grandfather retired over there and actually was one of the butchers at Thriftown when I was probably, 7, 8 years old, whatever. He grew up playing in the back of that store as a child. And fast forward from that, owned a couple of convenience stores, things like that. Worked for a wholesale grocery company out of Rockmart called E.B. Brown. So I've been on one side or the other of the grocery business my entire life. And saw that Save-A-Lot was closing. Used to be a Save-A-Lot. Was originally Thriftown from 1962 to 1992, I believe. Houchins Corporation bought it, made it a Save-A-Lot, and found out they were closing. Houchins was rolling up some of their outlying stores, and for whatever reason, I lost my mind and decided to buy this thing. And
Now, how long ago was it when you bought it?
I took that thing over, started working on the building in July of 2020.
So the COVID pandemic had been like 3 months underway.
Correct.
Okay, that was a great business move.
Yes, it was right in the eye of the storm. So did not realize that industry was ever changing at that point.
So basically, you've got plenty of courage. The fact that you would buy a grocery store right at the height of the pandemic would indicate that you're fearless.
That's probably not the end of the scale I'm on.
Okay.
I'm going to go probably the opposite end of that scale. Yes, the industry itself changed because there were all of a sudden less people in store shopping.
Sure.
The regulations as far as barriers and hand sanitizers and wipes and masks and it never seemed to end.
One reason, to me, this has always been something I've wanted to do, and that's why I'm grateful for you coming in. To me, the cashiers at grocery stores, a lot of people had their food delivered during the height of the pandemic. I was not one. And going into the grocery stores during that time, April, May, June, July, August, to see these young cashiers just doing their job faithfully, I just never thought they got the recognition they deserved.
I totally agree. The crew that I have, they never question a thing. Those folks showed up every day without hesitation.
And back then, we did not know much about COVID. We did not know how dangerous. We didn't know really much at all.
Yeah. Airborne, surface-borne.
We didn't know.
Sure, right.
Yeah, go home, wash down your groceries.
Right.
So I always just thought you got these, 18, 20, 21-year-olds or whatever age, they just seemed to always be there. And customer would line after line of customer, and they would do it.
Go at it.
Yeah. I mean, how did that make you feel to see that?
It for me as an owner, and being a little independent grocery, it's awesome to see folks that dedicated, but it's also the other side of that coin is scared to death because they're all my family and my kids at that point. So
Right.
Trying to decide where we're going to fall on that as far as their safety. Parents worried about their kids. I'm worried about their kids, worried about my wife and my child, my grandkid. We didn't know exactly what was going on.
Yeah. Well, let's kind of fast forward. It seems like we leave one challenge and now we've stepped into another one. I understand that inflation has caused, and we've all seen it when we go to shop for groceries. And it seems like when you're going down an aisle of a grocery store, you can overhear somebody else saying, "I can't believe it's this
Yes.
much." It was just a week ago. But they say that inflation for food, we've just been told inflation overall is 9.1, but I don't believe that includes food or fuel.
No,
Yeah, that inflation for food is 12% over last year. Is that accurate or is that more?
that is the extreme low end.
Really?
Yes, that's possibly some low end canned goods. Um, I know for a fact we have a bulk bacon. It's a big giant box of bacon. When I originally opened in 2020, that box of bacon was like $12.49 a box. That box of bacon currently is $32. That's I don't know how you do the math and make 12%, but that seems to be the steady average across the board on most things. I'd say 30 plus is probably a better number on food.
Well, give us a little education because I think more and more of us have learned that basically America moves by truck.
Yes.
And when diesel's $5 plus a gallon, obviously, how much does the trucking industry and the price of diesel impact food costs?
Um, well, I mean, it's a tremendous amount. With center store grocery alone costs me close to $2,000 a week to have a truck back up to my dock. So I'm $100,000 a year in the hole before we sell the first thing, and that's just one truck. So as a whole, my little bitty store, and we're not remotely close to what some of the big guys do. It's probably a good 5%. Just my bottom line zipped, and I try to absorb it. Being a community store the way we are, I can control a lot of the pricing differently than big corporate stores that get their stuff pushed down and this is what you're going to sell it for. So we try our best. I keep those margins as thin as I can, offer some discounts to seniors and vets and stuff like that to try to, but I absorb a lot more than the big guys do.
Well, we're going to talk more in detail about the big corporate stores, and I may throw in a slight big corporate radio in the meantime. So we know that trucks. So how much of your inventory is brought to you by truck? 100%.
100%.
100%.
100%.
No kidding.
So I mean, we have a few local guys that'll pull up in a pickup truck, and I try to buy as much local produce and things like that as I can. I have some guys that'll pull up in a pickup truck and I'll buy baskets of tomatoes or, some cucumbers, potatoes, things like that. But everything has a fuel charge now of some sort built into the cost.
Is that basically the reason that the food prices are going up, or are there other factors such like just the cost of fertilizer and farming in general?
It's all the way to the beginning.
Right.
I mean, the farmers themselves are probably they're probably like me, they're making less than ever, because you can't keep up fast enough with the price increases. Just to kind of pull the curtain back on the grocery business, I currently have about 7,000 items in my store. When I originally opened, we get tags. I have pricing. So if there's a price change, they send me a tag with the pricing on it. When I originally opened, we may have 200 or 300 price changes every 2 weeks. Right now, I probably have 400 or 500 changes every 2 days.
You're kidding.
No, that's probably the average.
Well, now, on top of that, I know in radio we've had supply chain issues. Our equipment oftentimes is delayed months. Are you having supply chain issues also, and how does that affect you?
I mean, I'm subject to the same as everybody. So when you see these holes on the shelves, that drives me insane to see a hole on a shelf with something that could be there that's selling. It all the way back to the aluminum. I mean, can shortages, plastic shortages. There's something missing all the time. Further up the river is just short. You don't know why. To the point where the big guys are feeling it. Like, right, I think we may have gotten some Friday, but like Coca-Cola, as big as Coca-Cola, they're out of Mr. Pibb cans. Mm-hmm. I mean, how does that happen, Yeah. So the aluminum shortages are affecting everybody.
Our guest this morning is Chad Smith, owner-operator of Smith's Thriftown in Bremen, Georgia. The website is thriftowngrocery.com. We're on Facebook Live if you have any questions or comments, and we'll be back with more after this.
Health is a journey. It's making better choices, even when it's not easy. It's taking care of yourself and the people you love. At Tanner Health System, we're there for you with every step, with primary care, heart care, cancer care, women's care, orthopedics, surgical services, and so much more. We're dedicated to helping you live and feel your best. So let's get on that journey to health. You've got places to be for many years to come. Find us at tanner.org.
I'm Michael Flynn, Oak Mountain Academy class of 1978.
Katie Flynn, class of 2010.
Justin Flynn, class of 2014.
Logan Flynn, class of 2019.
And I'm Marnie Flynn, current teacher at OMA.
My uncle Richard Orm Flynn, a founding father of Oak Mountain Academy, had a vision to see students become confident leaders who hold a faith-based value system in an academically rigorous environment. We are proud to celebrate 60 years of fulfilling my uncle's vision.
Our family invites you to visit the campus or oakmountain.us today.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Community Voice. I'm Steve Graddick, your host. Delighted to have you with us. Chad Smith of Smith's Thriftown in Bremen, thriftowngrocery.com, is in studio. How do you go about selecting food and products? I mean, because obviously your inventory is different than other stores. You obviously have a strategy for that.
When we originally opened, we tried to get a broad stroke of what inventory. There's rating systems of what's selling across the Southeast and things like that. So when we originally opened, we just kind of did a broad stroke of. Over the years, I try to make it a point of pride as far as our store. If somebody comes in, it's a little different going to the big stores because they can actually come to the owner and they ask me, say, hey, do you think you can get so-and-so and so-and-so? I'll try to make it a point to have it in that store. So over the past 2 years, our inventory has changed just strictly on customers' requests. I try to do it,
Is it mainly now price driven?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. The shoppers' habits over the past 3 or 4 months, I've seen change to people getting away from name brand, going to house brand, shopping price more than shopping what they normally do. In my household, there's no other mayonnaise but Blue Plate mayonnaise, mm-hmm. And I've seen those national brands start to come down, and our house brands starting to pick up. Just people shopping, they have to. I mean, you got to stretch a penny as far as you can stretch it, and when you get some of these things, get a jar of mayonnaise that used to be $2 and now it's $5. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think anybody got a 30% raise this year.
Mm-hmm. No. What obviously you see a lot of your customers basically struggling just to get enough to eat.
Yes.
How does that make you feel, and what I understand you do several things to help?
We try to make sure we take care of the folks in our backyard best we can. We have all the way out to, if they have nothing to eat and they're hungry, we have a blessing box in front of my store that we keep full of food. So instead of having somebody feel like they have to come in and put something in their pocket, they can go put something in their car and go home and feed their family if they have to. If they're veterans, if they're educators, if they're seniors, any of these people that are frontline folks we consider, or people that just basically help give us our freedoms as far as the veterans, we give them discounts. We make sure we take care of as many of those folks as we can take care of. Every year during the holidays, we do a fundraiser to give bags of groceries to needy families. The store will take care of several families as far as Christmas and things like that. I mean, I try to do my best to make sure there's nobody comes in my store feels like they're hungry and they leave without food.
Your store is a sponsor of our football broadcast. I understand you have bags of groceries in conjunction with that. Explain that to us.
Basically, what we do is we put together like 10 staple items: soups, rice, cereal, canned vegetables, things like that. And if somebody here in the community, which blows my mind how much people in our little community give, we usually sell those bags of groceries at like $5. We just ask them to give $5. We put that bag of groceries together, put it in a bin. We do majority of our giving through Harrelson Ministries, which is the food giveaway in downtown Bremen. If somebody comes in and I know it's a family that's struggling, we'll usually throw 3 or 4 of the bags in their buggy. Just let them go on with it.
I understand what used to be called food stamps, now EBT.
Correct.
I understand that there was an extra amount. Can you explain that? And that's now expired.
During COVID, when you had a lot of people staying at home, forced to be at home, things like that, there was some times where folks couldn't work. There was just a lot of struggle. So the state added on extra money to the EBT card. They've had a couple of raises since we opened. In about 2 weeks after we started seeing everything go through the roof, that money actually came off their cards. So we're seeing a horrible effect because folks that are already on a fixed amount of food they can buy now have less money to stretch further. With say 10%, 5%, 10% coming off their card and prices going up 20, 30%. It's I have a lot more people towards the end of the month that come in that are trying to live off beanie weenies and Vienna sausages, things like that. So
you had mentioned earlier about some parts of your store shelves being empty.
Yes.
And how you don't like seeing it's kind of like dead air on radio. Yes. It's not something you want to hear, or certainly not something you want to see. Are we possibly in store for real food shortages and as such?
I think there's going to be, and this is my opinion, and this is me talking to the so-called industry experts that are way further up the line than me. There's going to be more and more problems. We're not out the other end yet, especially with fuel still going up. You got aluminum shortages still. It's an infinite amount of things down to glue. That was one that caught me off guard, with cereal. Yeah, like Post cereal. If you go in my store right now, there's probably 10 holes, and Post is the majority of it because one of their glue plants burnt, and they don't have the glue to glue the boxes together.
Really?
Silly stuff.
Yeah, which we've never heard of in our lifetime, basically.
No.
I mean, even during the Carter years, the worst we really had was gas shortages. We had gas prices, and then we had gas lines.
Right.
But I don't recall having, serious food issues like this. So this is kind of post-COVID supply chain all rolled into one.
And some of the
not to mention monetary fund,
right?
Modern monetary.
And there was one that I spoke, and I'm not going to call their name out because I don't need them on me. But it's a large food chain that sells chicken.
Yeah.
That is a big part. My understanding. I talked to a national sales manager for one of the big chicken companies, and he said that's a big part of your problem on the chicken right now because you go to some of these other big chains. We're lucky because most of our chicken comes from Alabama, from some of those farms.
Right.
Some of the national places, they're actually paying more than market price because 100% of their business is chicken. I totally understand that. I would do the same thing. But these plants are converting over to 100% supply chain for those big companies, which is shorting the retailer on chicken.
Well, you mentioned it earlier. Go ahead and give us a little insight into big corporate grocery stores. I understand their business model is different than yours.
Yes, with my store, and that's always a little cut-up joke I have with some of the customers that come in that talk about how everything's going up, prices are up, yada yada yada. So you ought to buy it by the truckload and hope somebody buys it, and that's the position I'm in. as soon as those groceries come in, we write checks to pay for those groceries and just hope that somebody buys it. The bigger chains that are around us pay on SKUs scanned out the door. So they can fill their stores. Vendors are responsible for everything sitting in inventory, and they don't pay until it's scanned at the register out the door.
So if they don't sell it, they don't have to pay for it.
Correct. And the only people that take the hit are the vendors, which also hurt my prices.
Wow.
Yeah.
All of that because of volume buying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just like the chicken restaurant.
Yeah. When you're the big kid on the block, you can kind of make up the rules, I guess.
Yeah. Kind of like corporate radio, but we'll do another show
Yes.
on that. Okay, our guest this morning is Chad Smith of Smith's Thriftown, thrifttowngrocery.com. We're on Facebook Live. If you have any questions or comments, we'll be back with more after this.
Health is a journey. It's making better choices, even when it's not easy. It's taking care of yourself and the people you love. At Tanner Health System, we're there for you with every step, with primary care, heart care, cancer care, women's care, orthopedics, surgical services, and so much more. We're dedicated to helping you live and feel your best. So let's get on that journey to health. You've got places to be for many years to come. Find us at tanner.org.
As a believer in the power of education, we are called to set the standard by shaping and empowering the minds of future generations through quality education. Oak Mountain Academy embraces this philosophy, which is why my children attend this prestigious school. I am elated to serve on the OMA Board of Trustees, where together we prepare students and remind them to trust and believe in the power to transform the world. I'm Dr. Brian Bain, inviting you to celebrate our 60-year legacy of academic excellence. Visit us at oakmountain.us.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Community Voice. I'm Steve Graddick, your host. We're very pleased to have in studio Chad Smith of Smith's Thriftown, thrifttowngrocery.com in Bremen, Georgia, talking about inflation as it relates to grocery stores and food prices. But now you're a little bit unique because I understand your grandfather was a butcher.
Yes.
And technically your store is focused on meat and being what you call a kill center?
Well, we're a unique store being an independent. My grandfather was a butcher. My uncle was actually the market manager back in the 80s. That store is actually, the meat department is named after my grandfather. It's called Jake's Meat Market. Jake Smith was my grandfather. And my store is built as a butcher shop. We have butchers on staff that we cut it fresh every day. We have somebody there that'll cut custom cuts, things like that. But it is, we kind of went out a little bit further down the line because obviously I was crazy enough to open this right in the middle of COVID. Had the USDA, Department of Agriculture, those guys come in. We are actually, in case things get to and I hope they don't, to a point where we have to really crank down on how we're supplying meat and food to people, to becoming a full processing plant so that we can bring it in as a process, having animals pin, bring them through, process them from start to finish, things like that. So hope we never have to do that, but we are set up to do that in case.
That's extremely unique, I would think.
Being the small guy on the block is sometimes the best way to be. We're a little more agile than the big guys, and we have the ability to do things they can never do.
That's true. Yeah, when you don't have to go to a board.
Yes, there's no 40 emails and 500 video calls.
I mean, you're the stockholder.
Right.
Yeah, I get that. That's a good thing. You mentioned the FDA. I think it was, or USDA. Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
How do the state and federal feds oversee your operation?
They come through on the regular as far as inspection, things like that. The Department of Agriculture, Georgia Department of Agriculture, checks everything. USDA guys, they come through, make sure the meat department's put together right, everything's being handled, processed, stamped, to make sure you're not sneaking in, unstamped product. So, sometimes it makes it a little difficult because you have some silly rules to tap dance around, but we've been able to make it so far as that stuff goes.
Usually when we do a program with an agricultural agent, I always like to point out that a lot of people think that food comes from the grocery store, but it really doesn't. You encounter that as well, right?
Yes. We've had some super intelligent people make that comment here in the past that we don't need all these grocery stores, or all the farmers. We have grocery stores.
Yeah.
And if it weren't for the farmers, those guys are the backbone of our country.
Yeah. I mean, your shelves would be empty.
Yes.
Other than for scissors and whatever.
Right. Yeah. It's everything in my store is dependent on those guys doing what they do.
If we ever lose those guys, we're all done for.
We're in trouble.
We're in big trouble with that, you know.
Yeah. And there's less and less incentive, I think, to be those guys.
Yeah.
To the point where I think we talked about it before the show, to where I thought about getting some property and starting to do some of my own produce and things like that, and own cattle, just to make sure. But I hope it never comes to that.
I hope so, and hopefully you can always buy enough locally to kind of keep us all fed if things go.
Luckily, in Haralson County, there's plenty of people with cows.
That's right. In Carroll County too. What do you recommend in these type of times, and hopefully they won't go on forever, in terms of people shopping for groceries? Are there any tricks or nuances that would, where you can save $1 here and there? You mentioned generics earlier.
Yes. And if you'll notice, house brands, I call them, or generic brands, if you look at the cans or the packaging side by side, national brands, it's typically the exact same stuff. It just doesn't have the advertising dollars behind it that cost more. So they sell it at a discounted price. In my particular store, the Thriftowngrocery.com, you can use our app, our website, as a sale ad. So when you're going through the store, I have the specials, what's on sale, everything on that site that you can hold on your phone as you're shopping. That's my suggestion to everybody that I've spoke with since we got this thing going. That is the best way to get the most out of your dollar. It's just you got to shop those sales right now.
But now you also, and obviously, and we're going to run out of time, but we want everybody to eat healthy. How do you kind of approach that?
Perimeter. I always shop the perimeter of a grocery store. That's why the produce, the meat, and the dairy are on the outskirts of the store. Mm-hmm. Center store stuff is typically processed, or it's got all kinds of salt and preservatives and everything else in it. Fresh vegetables, meat, milk, you should be good.
Well, I mean, that's a challenge when you're, I know what eggs have done. I mean, it's a challenge when you're now on a limited budget and fighting inflation. So
yes,
we started out by talking about food overall being 12%, but you said it was more than that. What would you estimate it to be? You said 15 to 30?
Yeah, conservatively.
Yeah, that doesn't really get reported. So
no.
It doesn't get reported. So we'll just say everything's 9.1.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I guess this morning it's been Chad Smith of Smith's Thriftown. Thank you for coming in. I've learned a lot. I hope everybody else has too. Tell me where you're located.
We are at 511 Alabama Avenue in Bremen, Georgia. It's Thriftown Grocery, thriftowngrocery.com. I'm going to throw a shameless ad out there.
Please.
We have online shopping now, free curbside, and we actually do deliveries within 10 miles of the store. And I told my neighbors across the street, Grandma's restaurant, that I would say, hey.
Hey to Grandma's.
I would throw them a shameless plug.
Shameless plug to Grandma's. It's Chad Smith, the Smith's Thriftown. Go and visit. It's a great store. I've been there several times. And thank you for listening to the Community Voice here on WLBB Carrollton.